Hey there, brothers. Welcome back to Pure Stoic Truth, where clarity meets power, and men like you learn how to walk with strength, self-respect, and purpose. I want to thank you sincerely for choosing to spend your time here. If you're new to this space, don't forget to subscribe and join our community of men who are done settling for less than they deserve. Now let's dive in. In our last video, we uncovered 6 brutal truths about why women fear deep aware men, and today, we go one step further. If being emotionally intelligent and aware makes some women nervous, then understanding which behaviors are absolutely unacceptable becomes the next essential step. Because awareness is only the beginning. Boundaries are what protect that awareness. What if I told you that some women test your limits, not out of malice, but to see how much of yourself you're willing to give away? What if I told you the way you respond to a harmless joke could silently define how much respect she holds for you? And what if the greatest threat to your masculine strength isn't loud disrespect, but the subtle, quiet erosion of your self-worth? Let's get one thing clear. You're not here to learn how to impress women. You're here to learn how to protect yourself, your time, your energy, your peace. And that makes all the difference. See, most men today tolerate far more than they should, not because they're weak, not because they're worthless, but because the world never taught them where to draw the line. Society praises a man who endures, as if patience, selflessness, and being endlessly understanding will eventually make him worthy of love. But Machiavelli? He would have laughed in your face, because patience, when taken too far, isn't noble. It's self-betrayal in slow motion. And no one respects a man who betrays himself. So today, we flip the script. You're here to stop betraying yourself, not with rage, not with ego, but with calm, firm clarity. You're here to become a man who protects his emotional territory like a lion protects his den, not with noise, but with unwavering presence. Here's the raw truth. A man who tolerates everything ends up with nothing. That's why in this video, we're going to break down 8 behaviors no self-aware man should ever accept from a woman. Not because you're bitter, not because you want control, but because self-respect is your foundation. And once you lose that, you lose everything. Stick with me to the very end. Each behavior we discuss builds a layer of emotional armor. Miss even one, and you might remain exposed to the wrong women and unseen by the right ones. Let's begin. Point 1. Disrespect disguised as jokes. Disrespect doesn't start with shouting. It starts soft, almost playful. A teasing remark, a sarcastic jab, disguised as humor. Picture this. You're on a first date. She glances at you, smiles, and says, "Wow, you're shorter than I imagined. Cute though." You laugh it off, thinking you're being chill. But something deeper is happening. She's not joking, she's testing. She's poking at your boundaries to see how far she can go. Machiavelli once warned, injuries must be inflicted at once, so their effect is minimized. In other words, if you let the first small disrespect slide, you're laying down a red carpet for bigger ones to follow. So what do? You stay calm. You don't joke back, you don't flinch. You simply say, "I don't joke about respect." Then move on. No anger, no drama. Just a calm correction. And in that moment, you show her something rare. A man who respects himself first. That kind of man doesn't chase validation. He commands it. 2. Emotional manipulation through guilt. Guilt is the most subtle, dangerous form of control. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And before you know it, You're defending your feelings instead of questioning her actions. Let's say she cancels plans last minute. You're understandably annoyed. But suddenly, you're the problem. You're being too sensitive. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Now the spotlight's off her behavior and on your reaction. Machiavelli said it best. A wise prince learns to recognize the noose before he feels the rope. So if you find yourself apologizing just for having emotions, brother, you're already tangled in it. Here's how to reclaim your ground. Don't argue your feelings. Own them. Say this: I don't feel bad for respecting my time. Then let the silence speak. If she continues to use guilt as a weapon, she's not building a partnership. She's measuring how much of your dignity she can take before you notice. And that brings us to one of the most underestimated tools in manipulation: silence. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that's sharpened and used to make you question yourself. We single quotes LL explore this in part 2, and trust me, it gets even deeper. Earlier, we exposed how guilt can quietly erode your confidence. Now let's take it one step further. Because when guilt doesn't work, the next silent weapon is even more manipulative: strategic silence. 3. Weaponizing silence for control. Silence can be a sanctuary, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a leash, invisible, but painfully real. When a woman starts ignoring your texts, withholding affection, or suddenly turns cold after a minor disagreement, she's not resolving a conflict, she's training you. Let's break it down. You express a genuine need. She goes quiet, you wait. Tension builds, and she knows sooner or later you'll break the silence first. You always do. Why? Because you're seeking resolution while she's asserting control. Machiavelli once said, "One must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to scare away wolves." This kind of silence, it's the trap. And chasing it? That's walking right into it. So what's the power move? You don't chase. You don't plead. You respond once, clearly, calmly, firmly. And then, you disappear. Not in anger, but in purpose. You go back to your mission, your growth, your goals. Let her feel your absence, because a man who doesn't fear her silence becomes impossible to manipulate. He can't be dragged on a leash she silently pulls. He becomes untouchable. 4. Testing boundaries through innocent disrespect. Most women won't challenge your strength head on. That would be obvious. Instead, they'll test you through small acts that seem innocent, but aren't. She arrives late without a text. She interrupts you mid-thought. She flakes on plans with no explanation. Each act whispers, "What will you let slide?" Now imagine this. You're on a first date. She shows up 30 minutes late. Number: apology, no excuse, just a casual, "Traffic was wild." Most men play it cool. They don't want to rock the boat. But here's the truth. Every time you tolerate a small disrespect, you're silently teaching her that you have no boundaries. Machiavelli put it simply: it is much safer to be feared than loved. If one cannot be both. In modern terms, respect comes not from aggression, but from unwavering standards. So how do you respond? You stay calm, no lectures, no emotional outburst. Just a quiet, measured, noted, that's all. One word full of clarity. Then you shift your energy. If it happens again, you withdraw. Time, presence, attention, gone. Scarcity breeds respect. Because when you accept everything, you eventually lose everything. 5. Emotional highs that mask red flags. This one's subtle and dangerous. It's not just manipulation. It's conditioning. She showers you with love. Texts full of hearts, intense eye contact, soft touches. It's intoxicating, but the moment you express a boundary or discomfort, the warmth vanishes. She turns cold. Then, once you conform, apologize, agree, let it slide, she's sweet again, loving again, available again. This isn't randomness. This is reward and punishment. This is training. She's teaching you. Be obedient, and you'll be loved. Machiavelli once warned, benefits should be given little by little, so that they may be better enjoyed, but injuries should be inflicted all at once. In this dynamic, the love bombing is the benefit, the emotional withdrawal is the injury, and the sequence? That's what reveals the game. Here's how you rise above it. Don't get lost in moments. Watch the patterns. Look at the full arc of behavior. If her affection only appears when you comply, it's not love, it's leverage. Your internal compass must always point to your own standards, not her emotional weather. Stay grounded, stay aware, stay powerful. 6. Gaslighting. Your intuition gaslighting isn't always loud. It doesn't always say, "You're crazy." Sometimes it whispers, "You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You always make things up." Now picture this. You ask her why she's been texting her ex. It's a valid concern. But instead of answering, she flips it. "I didn't know you were this insecure." Asterisk. Now suddenly, you're defending your emotions, your sanity, not addressing her behavior. That's classic deflection. Machiavelli reminds us, the vulgar crowd is always taken by appearances. When applied here, it means gaslighting distorts your reality. Because a clear-thinking man is hard to control. So what's your move? Don't argue about your feelings. Don't beg for permission to feel. Just state the facts. Declare your boundary. And hold it, calmly, without flinching. A man anchored in truth can't be swayed by illusion. And just when you think the tests are over, comes the attack that cuts deeper than any other. Not your opinions, not your actions, but your very masculinity. We'll dive into this, and why it's the final frontier of emotional sabotage, in the next section. If you're ready, let's keep going. Part 3 will reveal how subtle shame around masculinity can disarm even the strongest men, and how you can stay grounded in your identity, no matter the pressure. Asterisk. Previously, we uncovered how subtle tactics like gaslighting and emotional conditioning can gradually wear down a man's sense of clarity and control. Now let's pull the curtain back on two of the most misunderstood and misused psychological weapons women may deploy: attacks on your masculinity and punishment for your independence. 7. Shaming your masculinity. You're too aggressive. Real men are supposed to be sensitive. Dominance is toxic. Sound familiar? These aren't just innocent observations. They're not constructive conversations. They're frame attacks. A covert battle over who sets the narrative, who leads. Let's say you take charge in a relationship, steering with intention and strength. Suddenly, that's labeled as being controlling. You express a firm opinion. Now you're problematic. This isn't about kindness. It's not about being better. It's about softening your edge so that you're easier to manipulate, to mold, to manage. Machiavelli's wisdom still echoes loudly today. A prince must learn how not to be good. In other words, what the world calls virtue can easily be weaponized against you when taken out of context. Leadership, decisiveness, assertiveness. These are not flaws. They are the bones of masculine integrity. So how do you reclaim your ground? Simple. Stop begging for moral permission to be who you are. You don't need to justify your strength. You don't have to soften your voice just to make others comfortable. You don't explain your nature. You embody it. You lead not with force, but with calm, grounded certainty. And in doing so, you remind the world that a man who respects his own masculine core commands respect without ever asking for it. 8. Being punished for having a life beyond her. Healthy relationships thrive when both partners maintain a strong sense of self. But sometimes, that's not what she wants. Some women won't directly argue with your independence. They'll quietly sabotage it. Not with explosive fights, but with guilt trips, sulking, or subtle emotional blackmail. Picture this: you cancel a casual dinner because you need to prep for a major opportunity, something tied to your mission, your future. Instead of support, you get this: "Oh, so your work is more important than us." But here's the thing, it's not about love. It's about pulling you away from your purpose. As Machiavelli observed, men judge more by the eye than the hand. In this case, she's reacting not to reality, but to the feeling of being left behind. And perception, twisted just right, becomes her weapon. So what's the antidote? Stay calm. Stay rooted. Don't flinch. Say it without apology. My mission is non-negotiable. You are welcome to walk beside me, but never instead of it. Because here's the paradox. The man who remains loyal to his path, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with who he is, becomes magnetic. And that's when she respects you the most. Not when you bend, but when you stand tall. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a bold step most men never do. You've chosen truth over convenience, self-respect over appeasement, and that alone sets you apart. But what comes next is more than advice. It's a mirror, a reflection of patterns you've allowed, of power you've unknowingly surrendered, moment by moment. In the final part of this video, we're going to uncover the silent training that conditions men to betray themselves, not through dramatic events, but through small, overlooked moments that seem harmless until it's too late. Let's finish this journey together. In the last section, we uncovered how losing your sense of self, bit by bit, starts not with loud battles, but with quiet surrender. Now let's bring all of this together with one final truth that ties everything into focus. The woman who tests your boundaries isn't necessarily your enemy. She's not always being malicious. More often, she's searching for clarity, for strength, for direction. She wants to feel that the man beside her knows who he is, where he stands, and what he won't bend for. Because here's the truth. In nature, in politics, and in love, softness without structure crumbles. Without backbone, even the most beautiful softness is disregarded. And that's exactly why Machiavelli's greatest lesson wasn't about domination. It was about vision. It was about standing so firmly on your foundation that no manipulation, no guilt, no emotional entanglement can knock you over. He understood something most men never do. The man who is clear cannot be controlled. Not by charm, not by tears, not by silence dressed up as love. Picture this image for a moment. A king doesn't lose his crown because an enemy storms the castle. He loses it the day he forgets to wear it. That's what happens to men every day. They aren't defeated by force. They're dethroned by habit. By letting the small things slide. By saying yes when they mean no. By trading long-term respect for short-term peace. By allowing guilt to cloud their clarity. But that ends now. From this moment forward, your path becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Draw your boundaries early. Make them clear. Firm, unapologetic. Don't do it with anger. Do it with calm authority. You don't need to raise your voice to protect your peace. And when your standards are not honored, don't fight. Detach. Walk away, not to punish her, but to preserve yourself. This is not cold. This is sovereignty. Sovereignty is not loud. It doesn't seek applause. It's the silent presence of a man who has chosen himself over approval, over validation, over fear. And that's the true Machiavellian gift, not teaching men to dominate others, but to stop being conquered by their own weaknesses. Because a man who knows his worth doesn't fight every battle. He chooses his battles with precision. He knows not every opinion deserves a response, not every emotion deserves a reaction, and not every woman deserves a place in his world. Asterisk. Here's the final truth. A woman will always mirror the standards you uphold. If you tolerate disrespect, you'll get more of it. If you calmly enforce your boundaries, she will do one of two things: rise to meet your standards or remove herself. Either way, you win, because real power isn't controlling her. It's never needing to. Once you understand that, you move into a different category of man. You become untouchable, not because you fight harder, but because you've stopped kneeling for things that are beneath you. This is the Machiavellian path. Sovereignty, clarity, silent strength. And now it belongs to you. And one final note: if this video resonated with you, don't just think about it. Act on it. Leave a comment, even a few words. It anchors the lesson in your mind and might help someone else along the way. Tap that like button if this message hit home, and share it with someone you care about, someone who may need this truth today. Because we're all working toward the same thing: a mind that doesn't break, a heart that doesn't beg, a man that doesn't kneel. And in the next video, we go even deeper. Why does she suddenly go silent? What's behind the quiet? Is it punishment, or is it power? The 5 brutal truths about why she's suddenly silent, coming next. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and I'll see you there.